so this is actually podcast number 10 for us. And I
Milestone.
gotta say that just it feels really funny at how fast things have come together.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long ago that we just had this idea that we need to facilitate in some way the conversation and to try to move forward really. And so I think this is kind of a little milestone for us.
Yeah, and it's really
That being
natural
said.
now. So like, it's not like we're always hesitating to have words to put into anything, any
Yeah,
given topic.
yeah.
So
And
like
we're actually
once-
getting enough feedback now that we can, make recognizable changes with the
yeah.
format. Yeah.
No,
So yeah,
it's coming
pop the
along.
cork on the champagne bottle, I guess.
No, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. As far as things that have been happening lately, we're still working on some of the audio issues on this. So again, we are, you might hear a little bit of audio and a little bit of disturbance because we have a fan. It's still kind of hot in the room. So yeah, but we're slowly gonna keep improving it. So if you guys
Yeah.
do have suggestions, please send us feedback whatever way.
Yeah. By the way, if we look groggy in any way, it's because it's nearly 12 o'clock at night, and we felt like it would be better just before calling it a day to actually get a podcast out and to address some things that we feel are pertinent at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I was struck today when I was out walking. I was taking my dog for a walk, out, way out in the boonies in Langley, and sky was beautiful today. I don't know. Did you get a chance to see it?
Yeah, I did. I stepped out for a while.
Yeah.
Went for a run.
We talk a lot about the weather in Vancouver,
Mhm.
but I
That's
mean,
on that video.
we just
How to be a
what was it called?
Vancouverite.
Yeah, how to be a Vancouverite.
Yeah,
Funny
yeah.
video. So, anyways, there was a bit of overcast today, and the sun was hanging behind it. It sort of gets that silver dollar look, and there was smaller clouds sort of framing it.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the smaller wisps of cloud, across the expanse of the sky, those in the distance were the whitest, whereas those closest to the sun were black. It gave me a really funny impression that if these clouds weren't as dark as they were, I wouldn't be able to perceive these clouds to be as white as they were. And that principle sort of applies to the rest of your lives, and you can apply that emotionally, not physically, in just about any spectrum that we can perceive, that principle is at play.
Yeah.
It goes back to, I think, Newtonian physics, where for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And I think that really helps melt a lot of the stress away about some of the things we deal with. Because, first of all, you get a lot of humility from the fact that when we experience a pleasure in our lives, you have to know that in order for you to perceive that pleasure, you had to experience, to the same degree, a pain in order for you to get there. And the same goes for every pain you're experiencing. You will come to know something just as great
Yeah.
in any other spectrum.
Yeah.
So joy, bliss, these things, you'll experience that. And reaching that, some people might assume that, well, then you're just numb. But that's not the case. That's not the case at all. You feel so much more fully, and you become so much more adept at being able to balance and to react to your environment. It's like getting your sea legs, really.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I can equate it to, really. You've got your reality legs, we'll call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you've obviously come across examples in your life of the same thing where you realize that things can work that way. I know that this is just my perception, and I have to hammer that point home. It's just my perception, but I think in each of our individual lives we can probably find some parallel to that. Just by the act of awareness and saying that I would like to perceive things just as they are.
Yeah. That's like a lot coming from what Alan Watts says, right? So.
Yeah,
It's like directly a page from his book, pretty much. So.
Well, a bit of that, yeah. I was listening to. He has a great audio lecture series called "You're It," not like tag, but you are it. You are the be all and all, essentially. And the idea there, one of the things he touches on is that here in this society we are constantly trying to get away from the darkness. Darkness can't win. Black can't win. I say that in purely like the color spectrum. We're not white supremacists here, but
No.
once you start thinking that black can't win, you think white must win, and you get involved in a whole series of games, really unnecessary games.
Yeah.
Truly speaking, because he puts this beautifully. If white wins, you have to also congratulate black for losing, because black had to lose in order for white to win.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can't totally live a life that is all light, that it's all happiness, because happiness without pain is a moot point. You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You can't distinguish anything.
Definitely. That's why like there's this one really cool analogy that I heard, and it's pretty simple, and a lot of people have heard it before, but it's kind of cool to mention every once in a while. So, have I mentioned the one about the kid walking through the orchard?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
so basically there was a kid and his father, and they're walking through a fruit orchard, and they happen to come across this tiny little cocoon, and this kid, his dad had explained to him earlier that a cocoon is the transition phase from, a caterpillar to a butterfly. So he understood that. He looked at it and he saw that the cocoon was kind of wriggling. So he asked his dad to give him like a knife or something, and he was like, I want to split it open. So his dad was like, maybe this isn't the best idea for you. Maybe you should reconsider your actions. And the kid was like, no, I just want to help the caterpillar get out. So he cut it open, and the butterfly flew out, and it waved its wings for a while and kind of like came out. It was amazing colors of its wings and everything. It was like a really wicked moment. And this butterfly flew around for a couple of seconds, and then it hit the ground and it was dead. Like it just wriggled for a bit and then it died. And his father said, did you understand what just happened? He said that when that butterfly is inside the cocoon and it is working its butt off to try to get out and just trying to rip a tiny little tear in that cocoon so it can get out, he's like, in that amount of struggle, it actually makes itself strong enough to live in the outside world, to actually continue to stay alive, to have enough energy to like fly away at a constant rate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's through that struggle and through that adversity that butterfly becomes stronger. So it was a really cool analogy. It's really simple, and it's cool how you see, like you said, like another one about nature. It's cool analogy if you can actually step into a proper, amazing kind of nature setting and step out of your regular setting. You can kind of learn a lot of appreciation through these analogies. So
Well, I think it's
kind of cool how a lot of religions talk about the como plant. Like, have you heard of what's it called? The lotus.
No, talk about the como plant.
The lotus.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you were describing this. The fact that one of the most beautiful flowers that seems to embody the quality of equanimity and grace grows on what is essentially some of the most vile materials on earth, right?
Well, it's like swamp water, right?
Swamp water, sewage, things like this.
Yeah, petri dishes, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but like that's crazy that analogy actually comes up in a lot of, especially in Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and I think I've heard some references in Christianity too.
Yeah. So in order to just to bridge those two ideas, I think it's important to say that you can actually, through understanding that your pain is your teacher, that in order to feel, in order to learn more, you essentially have to understand what ignorance is. You have to first recognize that there are things that you don't know, for instance. Once you can recognize that, you realize you're just, what you know is a drop in the bucket. It's a drop in the ocean, really. And so that is just one way in which you can help yourself become strong in the new sphere. I think the new sphere requires knowledge that is virtually unprecedented. If you look back at human history, hundreds of thousands of years ago, first we were hunters, everybody was a hunter, and then we became egalitarian, they became farmers, we're all farmers. Then there's the factories coming up, we're almost all farmers, and we're entering into something now where we no longer have to toil to live. We actually have
we live in abundance.
We live in abundance, and we can actually have our affairs. We can, we don't have to hunt for food. Food's right there.
That's
We
why
have all of our information. Sorry, let me just finish this.
Yeah.
We have everything we need now, and suddenly we have a new sphere. And most people, I think, try to push this away. We try to just to divert our attention and to fall into pleasure, you know, because we can't sit and be with something that makes us uncomfortable. And it's only by going through that, by struggling with these paradoxical reactions, these things we find in nature, these things we find in ourselves, until we actually sit through that and make ourselves strong enough to move on, we're not really going to know what that next role is. We're just on a plateau right now where we have the opportunity to do that. And it really comes down to our choice, whether we want to or not. Now, it's understandable. We talked about this in the last one. If we want to do something that makes us feel good in the short term and neglect the long term, that'll be our choice. And we won't get to experience the greater thing because we'll have accepted a short-term gain. But you can, by choice, say, I'm going to discipline myself to move on to that greater stage. You know, and it in a lot of ways you might equate that to that old Christian mentality, this idea that, oh, I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to close myself up, I'm not going to indulge in any of my human urges, and I'll get to do all of that in heaven. And that sounds to me really contradictory, and of course it does, right?
Yeah.
How could you stifle yourself like that? And, you know, I think it just makes things worse when you won't look at them. You tell yourself it's bad that you're feeling these things. You know, what if, I always have the thought, what if somebody has the urge to murder somebody? They're like, oh, but then I'll go to hell. So I'll just wait till I get to heaven, and then I'll murder somebody, and I'll know that joy. It's way out there. It's a crazy thought, I know, but it makes you think. What is heaven really?
Yeah.
What is it why is it that people need to strive towards that? You know, like that cruise ship idea. If anybody's ever been on a cruise ship or a vacation, there will always come a point where you'll go like, that's enough. That's enough sitting on my ass. I can no longer do this. You know?
Yeah.
It seems wrong that there'd be something that easy. We've worked so hard to get to this point. To find something like that, I think it would not honor the work that's required to get there. So sorry, what were you saying before I cut you off?
No, I can't even remember. It was like a.
Destroyed your thought, eh?
No, that's all good. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. I've been trying to take as much influence from different cultures lately as I can. You know, Buddhist people actually do have a really amazing perspective. The fact that they can disconnect themselves from these things that we regularly just tap into so much all the time, and we obsess about.
Yeah.
Like the fact we were watching that Louis C.K. video, and they're like, you know, Louis C.K. talking about smartphones and how it's just something that is a part of us now. You know, you constantly, if you're just alone with yourself for like a couple of minutes, if you're at the doctor's office, or if you're, you know, waiting for the person in front of you to get done with the ATM, like people can't just stand there anymore and just not do anything. They're constantly pulling like a phone out of their pocket and then looking down and just like, you know, taking their attention away from anything that's going on around them, and it's just focusing on phones. So it's crazy that we are advancing more in the way that we have technology and everything accessible to us, but at the same time it seems like we're also losing our independence and increasing our dependence on electronics. Like it's becoming insane that people, if you throw something at somebody, okay, you know what, imagine not having a certain facility, like imagine not having internet for a week, no internet for a week, no internet services, no email, no instant messaging, no internet on your phone. Just imagine just that. You can't access the internet for a week, you can't know what's going on or anything. You know, you can use anything else that you would in your life, no internet. Most people couldn't give that up. So
just from personal experience, this is something I hope that everybody gets to know themselves, but I actually I took a trip to Kenya and to do a little volunteer work, but while I was there, staying where we were, there was no access. I mean, there was in town that was a couple kilometers away, there were a few internet cafes, but for the first week I wasn't in my interest to go there. It was, you know, strictly stay with the kids. And I'm telling you, during that time where I did not access the internet, I mean, I had a phone to call my folks back here, but other than that, I had no access to the internet. And I'm telling you, I felt free.
Yeah.
I felt
No,
untethered by all that unnecessary bullshit.
you know the example that I'm gonna end up giving about wow, okay, the brightness just kicked back up. Wow, it was like it was on the screen, was on like standby almost, but it probably, sorry for the notice, you probably just noticed like a massive crazy change in the brightness, but anyways, yeah, I always mention for people that ever plan on going to India, there's some cities that you should definitely check out. One like actually there's two cities that kind of pair together. There's Goa, which is, everybody knows that, you know, it has a lot of exposure. It was in the Born Supremacy 2, right? And it's got, like, you know what,
Sorry,
everybody's
you mean the Born Supremacy? Because there's the Born
yeah,
Identity, the Born
yeah,
Supremacy.
sorry, the Born Supremacy is the second one, right? But that's what I meant to say. But it was in that movie, and it just, a lot of people do go out there. It's a big tourist. It has a big tourist industry. A lot of beaches.
Yeah.
So in a nearby city, there is a city called Gokarna, and it's not too far. It's about 3 hours away. And in Gokarna, they have just a bunch of private beaches, and there's a couple that people have heard of. Paradise Beach is one of them, and we used to just go there. And honestly, some of the best times of my life were just spent sitting on this beach.
Yeah, disconnected from all that.
Disconnected, like you wouldn't you wouldn't believe, like, you know, we obviously we didn't have cell phone reception, we didn't have any electronics, but then you realize how little you actually need to just be happy.
Yeah.
Like, we would just have, you know, a group of friends that would always be there. You know, you'd have once a day a guy comes in the morning and he has a massive box that he carries on top of his head, like a big blue box that he just like carries, and inside is just a bunch of essentials. You got your toilet papers, you know, you got food, you got, you know, just soft drinks. You have even like suntan lotion, like literally anything that you could need on that beach.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell the guy, like, we need something else, he'll come the next day and give it to you. He'll run a tab. So this guy, and once a day there'd be goats that kind of run through, and they're kind of curious goats. So that was cool. But all in all, like, we saw that every once in a while, you know, we'd make something to eat, and then every once in a while we'd have some like fresh fruit from this guy. So it'd be kind of a treat.
Yeah.
But you didn't really need anything else. You just need like a community of people just talking.
Yeah. And I was really struck. Like, you were telling me that in this place, the people that were making the food wouldn't make it unless they knew that the people around them were going to have some too.
Yeah, that was the understood, right? Like, it wasn't, in any case, even if you were alone camping on this beach.
Yeah.
We saw that case a lot of times too, that there would be an individual in the corner of the beach in the back, and they'd have like a tent set up, whatever, and it'd just be them alone, or like a couple, and they would make like a little bit of extra food, and they'd go around and be like, do you want some oatmeal? And like, just these wicked things that people would just make out of love, right? That's what it was. It was
really
wicked, like, and you can't. I never before that exposure had an idea of what the hippie culture really was.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Like, it was just a bunch of people spreading love, right? And all the time people are just like smiling. You're sitting out on the beach, it's so warm.
Yeah.
And there's actually, if you go to that Paradise Beach, you can actually YouTube it. A few videos have been made, but people haven't really properly captured just how amazing it is there.
You could.
And there's a nearby beach though. It's called Om Beach, and you just take a boat that picks you up from Paradise. It's like a 10-minute boat ride, and there's like restaurants there and a nice place to like sit and have your food, just every kind of food you can imagine. So this place has, you know, the contrast of a little bit of luxury and a little bit of the good life, and then you can just head back to Paradise and, you know, just lounge out on a hammock for 2 days in a row, right? So it was wicked, man. It was heaven for that reason, and it's called Paradise, and I think the name speaks for itself. So
I think just from that we can take away the idea that I don't think we spend enough time visualizing a conception of how we'd like life to be.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people that live successful lives, a lot of these guys, I mean, I myself have sort of familiarized myself with self-help books. You know, everybody's heard of Tony Robbins and Kevin Trudeau and stuff like that. And they all describe basically the necessity to create within your mind an idea, a way in which you'd like to live, and then basically step into that. Sounds simplistic, but that's sort of the idea.
Yeah.
And I think just acclimating yourself to that sort of environment would give you such a wonderful conception of the way in which we ought to live.
Yeah.
You know, ask yourself, do we really want to be paying bills as repetitively as we do? You know, this is serfdom. It's serfdom.
And it's interesting that if you look at shows like there's always so many shows about desert island settings.
Yeah.
You know, because they're trying to show you that when it comes down to
it's
it,
inhospitable.
and you don't really like. There is an underlying message in some of these things that you don't really need as much as you think you need. In the end, if you every once in a while got the luxury of having one chocolate bar like every 5 years, it would be enough for you. You wouldn't be desiring chocolate.
And that
It's
chocolate
like,
bar would be the best chocolate bar you've
yeah,
ever had.
and that's the thing. Like that's how we should treat life. That we should have these gems every once in a while. You should treat yourself. You should do something nice for yourself. But you realize that you don't need as much luxury all the time as you think you need. You can make do with just spending, spending your time doing something that's good for you, right? So, I don't know. It's really interesting just seeing how little it's actually you need to be happy. That's it. So.
No, it's so good to come back to that, especially because I know here one of my biggest pet peeves is commercials.
Yeah.
And what you described right now is the complete antithesis, the opposite reaction to what I see in commercials. You see like Pringles or whatever. If it's a food stuff, it's either somebody taking it from somebody else, or somebody who's got their product already, who denies it to everybody else. Somebody like, ooh, can I try? They'll be like, no. They'll like move the bag away. Something subtle, they'll do it with a smile, so it'll look semi-social, but it's all about get your own.
So I have to tell this story just because I don't think I even told you this story, but I did post it on Facebook. So did I mention about the corner store?
No.
Okay. So basically, I have to keep you looking at it just because our framing might get a little bit messed up, right? But yeah, it's so basically what happened was in Abbotsford I was on Sumas, and there's a Chevron there, and basically like I was filling up gas and standing there, and right in front of the actual booth where you go to pay, because at nighttime you can't actually use the pumps. You can't. You have to actually pay it. Or sorry, you can use the pumps.
Yeah,
but
you gotta pay inside.
But if you pay inside, you have to use the little side area, like the window.
Yeah,
you can't actually walk in.
Slot
the slot and everything. You can't walk in because there was actually that case a long time ago. That's actually the flipping point that a guy got. He ran after somebody because they hadn't paid for their gas, and he got dragged for a certain crazy long distance. And from that, he actually ended up dying. So that was actually what I believe changed it. It was the tipping point. But I was at this gas station, and there was a guy standing just outside the actual doors, which were locked, obviously. And he was going through the garbage can that was there, and he was like a fairly young guy, about 20 years old. But honestly, like this guy was just looking for something to eat, and he didn't care at all about his appearance, to the point that his pants were like at his knees, and like he was facing with his ass towards me. So like I was like, oh damn, what the hell? Because like I was filling up gas and I saw it in my peripheral vision, and I was like, damn, this guy's like in a rough situation, right? I'm like, but it's pretty sketchy here in Abbotsford, in that area, near Sumas and McCollum at night. But I was like, yeah, I should probably just fill up, and it was pretty late. I was just hanging out at Buddy's house, and so I just kind of filled up my gas quick, and I got in my car, and I started the car, and I was just about to start driving, and I see that there was a customer that was standing at the window the whole time, and he was kind of getting some food, but he got an extra bag of chips, and he walks over and hands it to the guy. And
really?
Yeah, and I was just like, I was thinking in my head, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, the way that I was perceiving it was that I had to get out of here quick, like this guy's probably sketchy, whereas this guy was like, man, like I had such a negative way of looking at it. Not that like I should help this guy. That was my first instinct. When I easily could have thought of the same thing too. Grab something, tried to find something in my car or something, anything that I had, or just some spare change, so that this guy wouldn't be digging through a garbage can. But that's what this guy did. He's like, I don't want you to dig through. So he just goes and hands the guy a bag of chips, and the guy's like, thank you. And I remember like I was actually like taken aback by it. And when I started driving, I went past this guy. And I was just like, I blurted out something like a mumbling. I was like, God bless you, brother. And I was like, I just kind of drove off, and I was like, damn, like I don't know what to say. Like I had to say something. I had to recognize this guy for having done it. But he just kind of looked at me like he gave like a low head nod. He was just like, thanks, right? And like, but it was crazy. that was a moment when I saw that my own perspective, that's something that we sometimes can't actually do, but like luckily, I don't know, as of late I've been able to do that you can look at the way that you're actually acting and see, where you can make the improvements so you're not hung up on strange ways of looking at things.
Yeah, and
so
I think that's, to extrapolate from that, it's nice to see that there really are no problems, there are just opportunities.
yeah.
And once you realize that, you know that it's not just about getting yours. You know that this is an opportunity to be your best self in circumstances that are really, when it's against the odds, you're facing a lot of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think like, how would most people respond? And because it's a bit egotistical, yeah, but I also like to sort of take the contrary position. Just for me, it seems a little safer than maybe taking the status quo, just at its word.
Yeah.
So, that being said, when I try to understand what would most people do, and I think a lot of people in that scenario would say, I better just fill up and go.
Yeah.
The right thing is for me, I see it as being the contrary position.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it looks like in a lot of cases it's against the rule.
Yeah.
How many people do you see throw money into the homeless guy's cup? And I know that's because people go, he's gonna spend it on drugs.
Yeah.
But not every homeless guy will. And when you're starving, you're not gonna shoot up. You're gonna grab some food. And I think my philosophy when it comes to that is, yours is to give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
Theirs is to use it or not.
There's a couple of actually things I want to mention before we go out here.
Yeah.
Every year there is a group called the Mission it's a gospel mission. I'll have to find out the details. I'll probably post them in the comments or whatever. Sorry, in the description. I'll post the details about this website. I think it's a gospel mission that they take in coats, so you can find out how to go to the drop sites. Every single time that we come around to like fall and winter, like over here in BC, like especially in the downtown east side, it gets freezing cold, and there's a couple of movies through the blue lens that are documentaries that talk about those areas because they are high in crime and they're poverty stricken, and you have a lot of people on the streets that are in bad situations, right? So you can get in contact with that. You can find it in the comments in the description below. And also there's a non-profit organization, Guru Nanak's Free Kitchen, which is run by Sikhs. Luckily I've had the fortune to have helped out a little bit in the past with it. They also do the same thing. They go downtown east side. They deliver hot meals and blankets and coats and whatever, anything that's needed for the winter. They do it every once in a while too, so you can always get in contact with them and find out how you can help. So it is good to like help on whatever way you can. In my high school,
nothing feels better.
Yeah, and like I remember in high school, like everybody felt good about just getting like those jacket drives together and donating a bunch of jackets. It's always good to help people, and you get that cool vibes. You get that feeling of some type of good karma coming. So not necessarily coming your way, but you just feel like a positivity from it. Just from helping.
So stop sitting back and just saying like, what's the world coming to? It looks awful right now. Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yeah. And I guess we're gonna cap it on that. But again, thank you very much for tuning in.
Yeah. And podcast number 10.
Peace and love, everybody.